One of the questions I get asked a lot as I travel, whether it's in a conference or one of our seminars or whatever, is how do I get my musicians to prepare beforehand? How do I get them to work on the music ahead of time before we come to rehearsal together? And that's a big deal, and it's a hard thing to really fully accomplish. Honestly, I don't know anybody outside of having full-time paid musicians that's able to accomplish that fully. But I do have some guys that address that topic and have some practical ideas. So let's take a look at these.
Oh, you mean all team members don't have their material prepared? No, they don't. I think the best way to get team members to be prepared is to be proactive in the initial stages as a worship leader. First, let them know, this is a big deal. I really expect this. I need you to put in an hour a week on the material, and then provide them intelligent audio of what we're going to do. And by intelligent audio, I do not mean here are 3 YouTubes, go look at them. But we're going to be doing it in a different key and a different arrangement. That's not a smart way to have people prepare. I think some worship leaders, the very best they could do, the smartest thing they could do, is to sit down at their instrument and sing and play the song they're going to do exactly the way they're going to do it, at the tempo they're going to do it, in the key they're going to do it, with the key changes. And it might not be the same as we did it 3 weeks ago. Give people a heads up. Bring them that arrangement.
I like Phil's idea there about giving people the arrangements in the way that we're going to do it, as opposed to, well, take a look at this, but we're really going to change this and this. I've seen that a lot. That just makes it a lot more difficult for the people who are going to do it. So give it to them in the way that you're actually going to do it. But the thing that he said at the beginning there, I think is so very, very important. The whole idea of communicating expectations early. That's a huge thing. If people understand coming into the team, look, this is what's expected of you, then you have a basis later on to say, hey, we agreed to this at the beginning. I'm not seeing it. Let's talk. That as opposed to just going to somebody and saying, hey, I'd really like you to do this. Why aren't you? It just makes it a whole lot easier over the long term to communicate those expectations early on. I think he's exactly right. But even with those things, reality is you're probably not going to get all of your musicians to do the prep that you'd really like all the time. John W. Stevenson's going to talk about that.
I think for us, we just have to keep working at it, because the reality is, except that you have a completely paid full-time staff where you're paying them to be there to rehearse, you're paying them to go over the material, then you're pretty much having to rely on what people can give towards preparation. So we have our regular time of rehearsal, but what we try to do is send out either a MP3 file or something that people can listen to prior to coming if it's our musicians. For us, it's probably a, 60-40, maybe 70-30 at best, that the team comes with a real sense of already knowing the piece. And that's just our reality.
I think John is right. We're not going to get 100% participation. It's just not going to happen. I think a lot of worship leaders set themselves up for frustration by expecting full-time commitment out of volunteers. And again, I'm not trying to give an excuse. We already talked about setting the expectations early on. I think that's a great concept, but the reality is that we're still dealing with people who are volunteering. They have lives. There's going to be things that are going to happen. You're not going to get 100% all the time. It's just not going to happen. And if you expect that all the time, then you're simply going to be frustrated. That's the reality of it. But there are some practical things that we can do that will make a difference. And Shannon Shaffer is going to talk about some practical things that can make a difference for you over the long term.
One of the things that I do is I plan my worship services and my sets a month in advance. So I do 4 weeks at a time. And the reason I do that for a few reasons. I don't want to overuse songs, but I don't also want to introduce a song and not have opportunity to make sure I'm intentional to use it several times. But as it relates to getting people to learn the music, I feel like if you can give it to them in advance and potentially even a month at a time, if you have different teams that are serving, they can look ahead in Planning Center or whatever you're using, and they have an opportunity to do it. If you're doing this week by week, and let's say by Wednesday you've got the songs in for Sunday, well, depending on people's work schedules and that, they may not even have an opportunity to put the time into listening into it. So I think if we do some planning and some preparation ahead of time, that helps people. The other thing is, with technology now, between sending out YouTube links or Spotify, you can at least get people to listen to the music. And then what we do is, I would never introduce something the same day that I'm giving it to them to learn, and we're rehearsing it for the first time. So I would always put it out there in advance, and we would work on it for several weeks ahead of time during our normally scheduled rehearsals, and that way I can gauge when is a good time to introduce a song. The team is ready or they're not ready. And there's been times where I was going to use that song this week, but I just don't feel like we're quite ready for that, and we'll wait. The other thing is, how often are you introducing new music? Because I find that, like our college group, for example, they want to introduce a new song every time they meet. Well, their band is semi-frustrated because they're constantly learning new music and they don't feel like they've had time to really get the old stuff. And so what I try to do is maybe once a month I would introduce a song, but we have a repertoire that we know well. So it's not like I'm constantly asking my musicians, oh, I need you to learn another song this week. I need you to learn another song this week. You don't want to wear people out either, because they have lives and jobs that they're working. So I try to be sensitive to that.
So 2 big takeaways from Shannon's: planning far enough ahead so that people have time to learn the music, to look at it, to get a hold of it, and not learning too many new songs. I mean, those are practical things. You want people to succeed. So what you can do is give them the tools and make it easier for them. So if you're planning far enough ahead, it's going to be easier for them to be able to learn the song, to put in the time to learn it. And if you're not throwing a new song at them every week, if you give them time to learn those new songs, to assimilate that into the repertoire, it's going to be a lot better off. They'll be more prepared coming into the rehearsal. And then Shannon has one more, I think, really good insight here.
And then you have personalities, right? Some people are just going to be difficult. They're not going to do their work outside, and you're going to have to come in with extra grace and just be ready to work with them where they're at. Because, we always have the easy ones. They're easy to pastor. They're easy to train, but there's always a couple that are just a little tougher and require extra grace. And I just come in prepared for that. And then we'll just evaluate, are we ready to do the song? And if we're not, then we'll have to put it on hold because of that.
I'm really excited about this video because there's so many different practical ideas in it. I would encourage you maybe even go back and watch it again. But the thing that I really want you to remember at the end of the day, when you've done everything that you can, planning ahead and giving them the arrangement that they need and all of the different things that were suggested in this video, I want you to remember that, again, unless you're in a church where you're paying your musicians full-time people, you're not going to get 100% participation. You're just not. I want to keep you from getting frustrated. I have sat face-to-face with so many frustrated worship leaders who have told me they're really upset because their people aren't taking the time to do what they need to do. And I understand the idea of wanting them to do it, we gave you some practical ideas of how to move toward that, but still, you're not going to get everybody all the time ready to go. And I just want us to take a deep breath and recognize that and say, it's okay. At the end of the day, this is not going to be absolutely perfect. Oh well, God's still in control. It's all right.
Brought to you by myworshipleadingcoach.com.
Helping you to be more fully equipped as a worship leader.